Well, okay, here we go again. A reply to, and it's Ben again, and he's having a look at a couple of my videos, and he's making some comments on those videos. Yeah, thank you for that, Ben. And he's saying that Nikola Tesla came up with this free energy device, you know, and you could put up free energy and all this sort of stuff. And he's reading an excerpt from his book, and it's telling us all that the world can be saved with free energy, which of course is nonsense. There is no such thing as free energy. There's been no demonstration, no provable demonstration of free energy. Ben certainly offers no evidence of the existence of free energy, and he says, well, you know, you could save these people in these third world countries by using free energy to take the salt out of seawater and irrigate the lands and all this sort of stuff. And he makes no mention whatsoever, of course, of the cost of the infrastructure to do that. You can't just, you know, if free energy existed at all, you'd have to apply it to some sort of machinery, to some sort of devices that are going to do all this. You know, you can't just use a cloud of free energy to desalinate water. Even if free energy existed, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's just, this is just ridiculous nonsense. Solar panels are, as I've said before, the closest thing we've got to usable free energy. I mean, in a third world country, you could put solar panels up and you could desalinate water. You could generate loads of power. You still need all of the infrastructure to desalinate the water and then distribute it. Pipes, pumps, all this sort of stuff. And you can run those with solar power. What you can't do is run any of that with free energy. It's twaddle. And yes, I do have my thesaurus handy. Thanks, Ben. Right, now let's just play a little bit of this.
And there's many reasons why his dream was never realised.
Yeah, because Tesla knew it wouldn't work. He was conning people to get money.
Go into that. He wanted to give this. He wanted this to be a gift to the world.
If that were true, then we'd all be using free energy. I'd be using free energy to record this. I'd be using free energy to watch it on my laptop. It's nonsense.
That was his plan. I'll just. I mean, it's not radiant energy. It's nothing. It's not cosmic rays. Cosmic rays are something different. Cosmic rays are is electromagnetic radiation from space. Radiant energy implies, I think, that's not actually a scientific term, Steve, but I think you mean electromagnetic radiation.
Yes, radiant energy is not a scientific term. Yet that was what Nikola Tesla called it in his patent. Take a look at the following clip. Yes, you're quite right, Ben. Radiant energy is not a scientific term. Sounds ridiculous. Sounds like something from science fiction, doesn't it? Well, here we go. Here's US patent 0685957, apparatus for the utilisation of radiant energy. That's a Nikola Tesla patent, as is the next one. US patent 0685958, which is part of the same thing, method of utilising of radiant energy. It's not even very good English, is it? And this one, apparatus for the utilisation of radiant energy. And if we look at it, it's pretty much as I described. He's got there's the utilisation of radiant energy as patented by Nikola Tesla. There's his sheet of Baco foil suspended up in the air, propped up on a broom handle or something. He's got all this radiant energy coming along and hitting his piece of tin foil, and the energy is travelling down this wire here, and it's being stored in this capacitor, in this condenser. And the other side, he's got an earth stake in the ground there. And what's happening is that the radiant energy is slowly charging this capacitor up, this condenser, and he's taking the energy out of the condenser and he's using it to run a motor. And this is not possible. It's absolute rubbish. What was it? Ben said, JP Morgan said that if he couldn't measure it, it didn't exist, and he was absolutely right. He knew that he was being conned. Tesla was trying to get money out of him for something he knew he could never make work. So that's that. That's put a line through Nikola Tesla and his free energy and his death ray. And Ben's argument that you couldn't use that during the Second World War because you couldn't let the enemy know that you've got that sort of technology is just nonsense. If there was anything to that, certainly the enemy would have been looking into it because they would have known the Americans were developing the atomic bomb, and if they could have developed any kind of death ray, certainly powered by free energy, so you didn't actually have to transport a high power energy source around for it that might be able to neutralise that atomic bomb, they would have been building it. So, yeah, forget all about Nikola Tesla and his free energy and his death ray. It is twaddle. I'm afraid Nikola Tesla was, towards the end of his life when he came up with this nonsense, was... well, actually, no, it's probably not towards the end of his life, is it? It's 1901, so he lived another 40 years. So he's trying to get money for stuff that he knows will never, ever work. And he's using his previous record, which was with generators and all that sort of stuff, as bait, if you like, to pull in investors. But I think at this stage he was more of a showman than a scientist, and this is all just fictional. Okay, so that's radiant energy apparatus for the utilisation. That's my finger. Apparatus for the utilisation of radiant energy. And there's the patent number, Nikola Tesla. So, yes, there is no such thing as free energy. Now, Ben will argue that there is, but he doesn't actually offer any proof of that. He says, "Oh, look at this book and look at that book," but yeah, it's unless you can actually see something working. He said, "Oh, sometimes these free energy machines, they have to be plugged in and they have to be started up." Well, no, if there's free energy, why would it need to be plugged in at all? If something can successfully take energy from whatever this mythical source is and utilise it, then why not just do that? And the answer is because it's not there. You've got to plug a machine in to get it going. It's a con. Yeah. So forget Nikola Tesla and his free energy and his radiant energy device. It's a joke. Now here we're going to see Ben talking about a company in Ireland called Streorn, and I actually remember this because there was a free energy nut at work and he was spruiking all this free energy stuff and he drew it to my attention. And I remember the article, free energy device, you know, bring your most sceptical scientists and we will show this free energy device working. And what of course happened was that the sceptical scientists went along and there was some reason the demonstration couldn't be carried out. I think the boss of the company feigned a heart attack. I can't remember the exact details now. It was laughable, and of course, like all free energy claims, it was nonsense. Let's just see what Ben's got to say.
Live presentation of his own device. Now, the Streorn people in Ireland, I don't know if you remember that. Streorn, I think it was, but yeah, it was rubbish. These were the kind of people I found a bit dodgy because there was this secrecy involved in this Orbo machine they created. I don't know if you're...
Okay, well, at least Ben is of the opinion that Streorn was rubbish. So yeah, I think we'd agree on that one then, Ben.
Familiar with that story, Steve? But there was this Orbo machine, and it was to begin with. It looked quite interesting. I was a member of their forum actually, but it got a bit dodgy.
You probably know the guy I'm talking about, who I used to work with. If you used to muck around with free energy forums,
towards the end, because they were doing demonstrations like in Covent Garden, places like that in London. But they wouldn't let anyone come too close to the machine.
Yeah, well, there you go. Anytime you get a free energy demonstration and they won't let you come too close to the machine, they won't let you inspect it. I think Ben says pretty much the same thing, actually. I think we're on the same page there. But where we deviate, of course, is that Ben believes that some of the free energy claims out there are real, and I believe, of course, that they are not. I've never seen a real convincing demonstration of free energy being produced, because it can't be done. Simple as that. Okay, next clip. Okay, now we're on to the 9/11 Judy Wood nonsense. Let's just see what Ben's got to say about that.
And that's about all that was left. Just that little corner of WTC 3. It's a 22-story building. Now, you'll learn I have a unique language.
Yeah, it's bullshit. He doesn't even let her explain what she means by having a unique language. What Dr. Judy does is she uses some of her own invented terminology.
Yeah. In other words, bullshit. She invents words to explain effects that she's made up, basically, because they don't exist. And she uses terms like dustification. Well, watch any YouTube video of any tower block being dropped and you'll see lots of dust. It's the same colour. Ben says, there was a lot more dust on 9/11, but they were pretty big buildings. There's a big difference between the amount of dust you would see if you dropped a 22-storey building and the amount of dust you would see if you dropped a 100 and whatever it was story building. You're obviously going to see 3 or 4 times the amount of dust. And also it depends on the buildings that surround the buildings that are being dropped, whether the dust is going to hang around in streets, which are basically big corridors, or if there's not much around them, the dust is going to disperse quite quickly. So there's no mystery there whatsoever. I don't think it's worth really persevering with that. Dr. Wood doesn't say how much energy would actually would need to be produced by this directed energy weapon. How many megawatts or gigawatts of power, what sort of energy it is. And she offers no evidence whatsoever that a weapon was used, where it might have been placed, where it might have hit the building, because remember they fell quite uniformly. That they were powered by free energy, really? And how much free energy was being pulled out of the air to power this device? Is that mentioned anywhere? To be perfectly honest, I couldn't be bothered to read the book because I know it's going to be absolute codswallop. I really wouldn't waste my time with it. We all know what happened on 9/11. Okay, so I'll just end that one there. Move that on a little bit. More 9/11 nonsense.
Fictionalised? No. I think the planes were real, and I think, some people called into question the flight plans and things like that. I mean, I'm open to that as well. But being as liberal, treating this as liberally as possible, I would say the planes were real. They took off with the named passengers on board. It's possible some of the phone calls, like Barbara Olson actually used a seatback phone, I believe. She didn't use her mobile phone. I think there's question marks over the mobile phone calls. Indeed, but Barbara Olson used a seatback phone. She made a reverse charges call, apparently, to her husband. I don't think you can do that from those planes.
Yeah, there we are. Create a bit of intrigue. I don't think you can do that. I'm not sure that's technically possible. Well, if that's what she did, it's obviously possible, isn't it?
But either way, so she used the plane's own phone material, phone thing, okay. But what I suspect happened now, this is the thing, says, I know what's going to happen now, right? You're going to make a video, or perhaps it won't be you, but somebody...
Oh, I think it probably will be.
He's going to make a video saying, Ben is now saying that there's people on the planes landed on some desert island, and all the people are basically living the high life in the Bahamas under assumed names, and they've agreed to pretend they're dead and never contact their family again.
Well, that's no more ridiculous than saying that the planes didn't hit the towers.
That's what you think, don't you, Ben? And indeed, this is what I bloody heard. This is what the BBC Conspiracy Files programme said. Absolutely ridiculous. Or to use your words, twaddle, nonsense, rubbish, pile of, etc.
Indeed, yes. Yes, it certainly is.
Okay, I'm using the same thesaurus as you now, Steve.
Yeah, and see, this is where they flounder. Okay, no planes were used on 9/11. The planes did not hit the buildings. So, where are they? Where are the aircraft? Where are the people? None of them have got an answer for that. Well, they took off and they flew around, and no one knows what happened to the planes or any of the people. But they didn't hit the buildings. They didn't all die when they hit the buildings. What actually happened to the aircraft and the people is a complete mystery. Have you ever heard anything as ridiculous as that? Really?
The truth of the matter is, it's unlikely those people are still alive.
The truth of the matter is, we know they're all dead. They all died when the aircraft hit the buildings. That's the truth of the matter.
And it's unlikely those aircraft are still in one piece or are still anywhere.
Well, no, because they're certainly not in one piece, because they crashed into the buildings.
I mean, I'm not going to speculate on exactly what was done with those aircraft and the people.
No, because you can't. You can't speculate on what was done with those aircraft or the people, because you can't, can you? Because everybody knows what happened to the aircraft and the people. They were flown into the buildings and destroyed. That's what happened to them. And not one single conspiracy theorist can come up with a realistic answer to that question. Okay, if no planes crashed into the buildings, where are they? Where are the planes? Where are the people? And not one single conspiracy theorist has come up with anything other than, I don't know, I can't speculate, maybe the planes didn't exist. It's just absolute twaddle. We all saw it unfolding live on television. We all saw it happening. We know exactly what happened. There is no false flag conspiracy. Okay, there was a conspiracy by terrorists to hijack the planes. That kind of conspiracy, sure. Okay. Now,
on board, but sadly,
there was another point I was going to make, but that should have been earlier on, actually.
Unlikely that they're still alive. But
yeah, that's just unlikely they're alive. Okay, hang on. I think he's going to go on to talk about these Coke can aircraft.
Well, I don't dispute that they've all died, so that the relatives were really grieving for people who've really died, and they had a funeral for them. But I do believe that those people did not die when the plane struck the sides of the World Trade.
Why? What would actually lead you to believe that the planes never struck the buildings and they never died on impact as those aircraft hit the buildings? Why on earth would you think otherwise? Makes no sense whatsoever.
The centre. I mean, Dr. Judy Wood has talked about this in great detail, but you've got to believe the official story on 9/11. You have to believe that an aircraft, now a jet airliner, is an aluminium-framed aircraft. It's got an aluminium frame. It has to be as light as possible to be able to fly. So it's made of aluminium, which is aluminium struts, and it's covered by a hull. The hull is...
Yeah. Okay, he's going to go on to say how flimsy these aircraft are, but what he does, if he looked up the specifications for any of these aircraft, he would know that each engine weighs something like 5 tons or 7 tons. The aircraft, complete with fuel and everything else, weighs something like 200 tons. If you've got an aluminium box weighing 200 tons, and it'd be like firing it out of a cannon, travelling at 700 miles an hour or whatever it was into a steel structure. It's going to cause a bloody great hole, and we actually saw it do that live on the news. So really, when it comes to 9/11 conspiracy theorists, just put a line through anything they have to say, because it's absolute bloody nonsense. We all watched what happened on the news. We saw the aircraft fly into the buildings. It's just ridiculous to even consider this conspiracy twaddle. Now what occurred to me was that when Ben was talking earlier about his free energy, I'm not going to bother stopping it and making another clip and inserting it back in the beginning. Ben was talking about the free energy and how the world would collapse if we didn't have an oil-based economy and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, he hasn't looked at the news recently, because Saudi Arabia is preparing for a non-oil economy in in 20 years' time, they don't expect anyone's going to be buying their oil. So they're trying to see what they can do to make money, so that they can focus on keeping a healthy economy that will keep the country going when nobody wants to buy their oil, because all the cars will be electric. They'll probably be powered by graphene type cells. The whole skin of the car will probably be a photovoltaic cell, so the power from the sun will be captured by the actual car body and fed into the graphene battery. Now remember, graphene is a substance that acts like a superconductor at room temperature. No one's going to want oil. Aircraft now made of mostly of composite materials. No one's going to be making ships and cars and planes out of metal. It's all going to be composite, synthetic materials. So it's not. It may be that they'll still be selling lots and lots of oil, because plastics are oil based, aren't they? If you want to make plastics, you need oil for that. But certainly, as a fuel, oil has a very limited future. So this, if there was anything around that could easily replace oil, we'd be knowing about it. And I think they'd certainly be keeping a lid on this super duper graphite or graphene material that they think is going to be doing all sorts of wonderful things. Okay, well, that's going to be a pretty short video. I'm sorry, Ben, it probably deserves a little bit longer. I can see you put a bit of effort into that. It's an hour and something long, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for making the reply video, and thanks for taking a look at the other videos on the channel. And what was it he says right at the end? Hang on a sec. He says thank you to me for highlighting the conspiracy theorists or something. Hang on, where's that? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. It's got a cinema mode or something on it. Let's just put that back there.
It's actually called a skin, the actual outer hull of the aircraft, which is, because I mean, it's funny. A lot of her public events have been cancelled actually lately, which is very, very strange.
Who's that? Judy
That's
Wood.
another subject anyway. But I'll just let Steve carry on. But basically, the mainstream story of 9/11, the official repeated on the news doesn't mean evidence, doesn't equal. But actually doing the UFO conspiratory paranormal
here we go.
Destruction of the World Trade Center.
This is the bit I was looking for.
Is distinctly flawed. Your theoretical model is completely flawed.
Of course it isn't, because we all saw it on television. If that was faked, how many people on how many television networks and radio networks would have to be in on it? It's beyond ridiculous, Ben. Absolutely beyond ridiculous.
And so that's why I've said what I've done. You yourself have responded to me many, many times in the comment sections of my video, and with your own reply video to me, and you're perfectly welcome to do that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
So, but of course
I'd be doing it whether I was welcome to or not. But thanks anyway.
Obviously, I'm going to put my side of the story across too, as well. And I think you're incorrect, and I've explained why I think you're incorrect.
And yeah, likewise, I think you're incorrect, and I think it's very obvious that you're incorrect. And I think it's very obvious that you're clutching at straws for 9/11 to be anything other than what it actually was. Yeah.
And you're really not going to want to hear this, Steve, but you are actually doing the UFO conspiracy paranormal believing community an enormous service.
I'm happy to hear that, believe it or not. I'm glad to be doing a service to anybody. I think that's excellent news, and I'm very pleased to hear that.
Did you know that? You're actually doing us a huge favour, because you are actually adding energy to our community.
Great. If I could add energy to the UFO conspiracy community and get them all jumping up and down, that's brilliant. That's sort of what my channel's all about, really.
You're actually preventing us becoming just an echo chamber of agreement.
Yes, actually, he's absolutely right about that. An echo chamber of agreement. They all go to these little presentations, and they're all listening to each other's nonsense and pat each other on the back, saying, "Oh, wonderful! Isn't it good that that wasn't really what happened? What really happened was this." When what really happened was what really happened. Yeah, that's true. So if it's getting a few of these people to look around and have a listen, and I reckon that's great.
Now, don't go deleting your videos, please.
No, deleting my videos. that comment wouldn't lead me to delete my video. Actually, nothing would lead me to delete my videos. Not a chance. So no worries there, mate.
It's just with that knowledge, because I want to reply to some of your others.
Yeah, great. And I look forward to seeing your replies, Ben.
Right. So, Steve, thank you very much for your videos. I appreciate you making them, because it obviously gives me subject matter which I can make videos of myself.
Yes, it does. And yes, and thank you. Yes, it's good to get some feedback. It's good to get an alternative view, but it's a shame that you can't do a little bit more than say read this, or look at that. And Judy Wood offers lots of evidence. Look at the book. To be honest, I wouldn't waste my time reading that book, but I've certainly seen no evidence whatsoever in her presentations. The presentation that I've seen on YouTube, anyway. I look at more than one, to be perfectly honest, but I just thought this is nonsense. It's obvious, very obvious nonsense. She's talking about the weight of the buildings crushing the tunnels underneath and all that sort of stuff, as though the weight of the buildings wasn't there previously, as if they were weightless when they were standing. Suddenly you've got this 1.2 million tonnes of rubble crushing the railway tunnels and everything else, as though someone had come along in a hot air balloon and just heaved 1.2 million tonnes of debris over the side of the basket. And it's just rubbish, absolute rubbish. So, and he says, yes, free energy is real, but offers no evidence for that. Dr. Judy Wood offers evidence, but offers no evidence of that evidence, because there's no evidence of any of it. It's all, where's my thesaurus? Rubbish, twaddle, nonsense. It's a steaming pile. All right, well, I'm sorry. That's as I said, it probably deserves a sort of longer, more detailed video, but I don't have a lot of time, and this is going to have to do. So if you've made it this far, as always, thanks for watching. I might catch you again.